I died 3 times in one night. 3 times my heart stopped beating. 3 times that cold, flat line stretched across the monitor like a silent scream. 3 times I should have been gone forever. But someone wouldn't let me go. Someone grabbed my hand in the darkness and pulled me back. Someone spoke 2 words that changed everything I ever believed about life, death, and what waits for us on the other side. I felt that hand, I heard that voice, and I'm about to tell you exactly what happened when I crossed over and why I came back. My name is Michael Turner. I was 47 years old when I died. I was a mechanic, just a regular guy from New York City who spent his days underneath cars, covered in grease, working 60-hour weeks to keep the lights on at home. I had a wife named Sarah who I'd loved since high school. I had 2 teenage kids who thought their old man was boring. I had a small garage shop on the corner of Elm and Fifth that barely broke even most months. I wasn't special, I wasn't religious, I didn't go to church on Sundays. I believed in hard work. I believed in fixing things with my own 2 hands. I believed that if something was broken, you rolled up your sleeves and you made it right. I didn't believe in miracles. I thought miracles were for other people, desperate people, people who needed fairy tales to get through the day. I was practical, I was logical. I was the kind of man who trusted what he could see, what he could touch, what he could prove. But on one frozen winter night in February of 2001, everything I thought I knew about this world shattered. Let me take you back to that night. New York City was drowning in snow. The biggest blizzard in 20 years had buried the streets under 2 feet of white. Cars were stranded everywhere. Tow trucks couldn't keep up. My phone was ringing off the hook with desperate customers needing help. I'd been at the shop since 5 in the morning. By 8 o'clock at night, I was running on empty. My back ached. My hands were cracked and bleeding from the cold. I hadn't eaten since breakfast, just a stale bagel and black coffee. But I kept working. That's what I did, that's who I was. Michael Turner didn't complain. Michael Turner didn't rest. Michael Turner kept his head down and did what needed to be done. Sarah had called me twice that day, asking when I'd be home. The kids wanted to have dinner together for once, maybe watch a movie, be a family. Soon, I told her both times, just one more car. But there was always one more car. The wind was howling outside. Snow was piling against the garage door. I could hear the metal walls creaking and groaning under the weight of the storm. The heater in the corner was barely keeping up, blowing weak streams of warm air that disappeared into the frozen darkness. I was underneath a 1995 Ford pickup, fighting with a rusted bolt that wouldn't budge when I felt the first warning sign. A tightness in my chest. Not pain, not yet, just pressure, like someone had placed a heavy stone right in the center of my ribcage. I ignored it. Probably just stress, probably just exhaustion, probably just my body telling me I was 47, not 27, and I couldn't push myself like I used to. I twisted the wrench harder. The tightness spread. It moved up into my throat, making it hard to swallow. It crept down my left arm, leaving behind a strange, tingling sensation. My fingers felt numb, weak. The wrench slipped from my grip and clattered against the concrete floor. Something was wrong. Something was very, very wrong. I tried to slide out from under the truck, but my body wouldn't cooperate. My arms felt like they were made of wet sand. My legs trembled. My vision started to blur at the edges, like someone was slowly pulling a black curtain across my eyes. And then the pain hit. It came like a freight train. 1 second I was fine. The next second, a white-hot explosion of agony detonated in my chest. It felt like someone had reached inside my ribcage, grabbed my heart with both hands, and squeezed with all their strength. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I couldn't move. I opened my mouth to scream, but no sound came out, just a weak, gurgling gasp that disappeared into the cold air. I managed to roll out from under the truck and onto the freezing concrete floor. I lay there, staring up at the fluorescent lights, watching them flicker and dance as my vision faded in and out. This is it, I thought. This is how I die, alone, on the floor of my shop, in the middle of a blizzard. I thought about Sarah. I thought about how I'd promised to be home soon. I thought about my kids waiting at the dinner table, checking the window, wondering why Dad was so late again. I tried to reach for my phone, but it was on the workbench 6 feet away. It might as well have been on the moon. The pain was unbearable now, wave after wave of crushing pressure. My heart was racing, then stopping, then racing again. I could feel it stumbling inside my chest like a drunk man trying to walk a straight line. The world started to go dark. Not the gentle darkness of falling asleep. This was different. This was absolute. This was the kind of darkness that swallows you whole and never lets you go. I remember thinking, please, please, not like this, not yet, I'm not ready. But the darkness didn't care. It took me anyway. The next thing I knew, I was waking up in a hospital bed. Bright lights, beeping machines, the sharp smell of antiseptic, my wife's face streaked with tears hovering above me. Michael, she whispered, her voice breaking. Oh, thank God, Michael. I tried to speak, but there was a tube down my throat. I tried to move, but my body felt like it was made of lead. Everything hurt. Every breath was a battle. But I was alive. How was I alive? The doctors told me later what happened. Someone had found me on the floor of my shop, called 911, and the paramedics had arrived just in time. My heart had stopped in the ambulance. They'd brought me back with CPR and a defibrillator. I'd been rushed into emergency surgery at Mount Sinai Hospital. But that was just the beginning. What happened next, what happened in that operating room, is why I'm telling you this story today. I want you to listen carefully now. I want you to really hear what I'm about to say, because I know how crazy it sounds. I know you might not believe me. I know there are people who will say I was dreaming or hallucinating or that my oxygen-deprived brain was playing tricks on me. But I was there, I lived it, and I will go to my grave knowing that every single word of what I'm about to tell you is the absolute truth. They wheeled me into the operating room just before midnight. I was unconscious, but somehow part of me was still aware. It's hard to explain. It was like I was floating above my body, watching everything happen from a distance. I could see the doctors and nurses rushing around. I could see the machines and monitors. I could see my own pale face on the operating table, a mask over my mouth, wires attached to my chest. I could hear them talking. Massive cardiac arrest. Multiple blockages. We need to move fast. He may not make it through the night. That sentence hit me like a punch to the gut. He may not make it through the night. They were talking about me. They were saying I was going to die. No, 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 no. I had to fight. I had to survive. My family needed me. My wife needed me. My kids needed their father. But then something changed. The beeping of the heart monitor shifted. It went from a steady rhythm to a frantic, irregular pattern. Alarms started blaring. Lights started flashing. The doctors' voices turned sharp and urgent. He's going into VFib. Paddles now. Charge to 200. Clear. I felt the shock hit my body. It was like being struck by lightning. Every muscle tensed. Every nerve screamed. My back arched off the table. But my heart didn't respond. No pulse, starting compressions. I watched a doctor place his hands on my chest and begin pushing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hard, rhythmic compressions that made my whole body shake. Come on, come on, come on. Charge to 300. Clear. Another shock, another jolt of electricity searing through my body. Nothing. The line on the monitor went flat. That sound, that horrible, endless, high-pitched tone, the sound of death, the sound of the end. Flatline. I was dead. I didn't feel the transition. One moment I was watching the chaos of the operating room, and the next moment, I was somewhere else. The darkness was absolute. Not like nighttime, not like closing your eyes. This was complete and total blackness. No up, no down, no left, no right, just endless, infinite void stretching out in every direction. But I wasn't afraid. That's the part that surprised me most. I should have been terrified. I should have been screaming and panicking and fighting to get back. But instead I felt peaceful, calm, like I was floating in warm water, completely weightless, completely free from pain for the first time in years. Is this death, I thought, is this what it feels like to be gone? I floated in that darkness for what felt like hours, or maybe it was seconds. Time didn't exist there. Time was a concept that belonged to the world of the living, and I wasn't part of that world anymore. And then I saw it. A light. Far away at first, just a tiny pinprick in the infinite blackness. But it grew, slowly at first, then faster and faster. It expanded until it filled my entire field of vision, warm and golden and impossibly beautiful. I felt myself being pulled toward it. Not against my will, I wanted to go, I needed to go. There was something in that light, something waiting for me, something that felt like coming home after a long, long journey. But before I could reach it, before I could step into that glorious warmth, a hand grabbed mine. I stopped. I looked down and there it was, a hand, large, powerful, wrapped around my fingers with a grip that was firm but gentle, the hand of someone who loved me, the hand of someone who wasn't ready to let me go. I couldn't see who it belonged to. The light was too bright. All I could see was a silhouette, a figure made of pure radiance, standing between me and whatever waited on the other side. And then I heard the voice. It wasn't like a normal voice, it didn't come from a mouth or travel through the air. It was everywhere at once, inside me, around me, through me. It resonated in my bones, in my soul, in every atom of my being. 2 words. Just 2 words. Not yet. The voice was soft, but it carried the weight of eternity. It was kind, but it was absolute. There was no arguing, there was no questioning, there was only truth. Not yet. I felt tears streaming down my face, not tears of sadness, tears of understanding, tears of recognition. I knew that voice. I had always known that voice. It had been with me my whole life, whispering in quiet moments, guiding me through dark times, waiting patiently for me to listen. And I had never listened. I had been so busy, so focused on work and bills and fixing broken things. I had ignored the still, small voice that tried to reach me in the silence. I had dismissed the moments of wonder, the glimpses of something greater, the countless little miracles that I had written off as coincidence. But now, standing at the edge of eternity, I finally heard. I finally understood. I wasn't alone, I had never been alone. And even in the darkest moment of my life, even when my heart had stopped beating and my body lay dead on an operating table, someone was holding my hand. Please, I whispered, please let me stay, let me see your face. But the voice spoke again. Your work is not finished, your family needs you, there are hands you must hold. I didn't understand what that meant, not then, but I would, soon I would understand everything. The hand released mine. And I was falling. Falling back through the darkness, falling back toward the pain and the cold and the noise, falling back toward life. I slammed back into my body with a force that took my breath away. The first thing I felt was pain, crushing, overwhelming pain that radiated from my chest through every part of my body. The second thing I heard was shouting, doctors and nurses yelling, machines beeping, the chaos of the operating room erupting around me. He's back, we have a pulse. Sinus rhythm, he's in sinus rhythm. Blood pressure stabilizing. They were cheering, laughing, crying. I could hear the relief in their voices, the disbelief, the joy of snatching a life back from the jaws of death. But they didn't know what I knew. They thought they had saved me. They thought their compressions and their defibrillators and their medical expertise had brought me back from the brink. They were wrong. Someone else had saved me. Someone else had held my hand in the darkness and spoken the words that sent me back to this world. But my story doesn't end there. Because my heart stopped again. Just 12 minutes later, as the surgeons were working to clear the blockage in my artery, the monitors started screaming again. My heart, damaged and weak from the first arrest, gave out a second time. Flatline. The cold, merciless line of death stretching across the screen. Starting compressions. Push 1 of epi. Charge to 360. I was gone again, back in the darkness, back in that void between worlds. But this time I wasn't peaceful. This time I was fighting. I had seen the light, I had felt the hand, I had heard the voice, and I knew I was supposed to go back. I knew my time wasn't finished. So I fought. I fought with everything I had. I clawed and struggled and reached for the light that was pulling me away. I screamed into the void, begging for another chance, pleading for the hand to find me again. And it did. That same hand, that same warm, powerful grip, it grabbed me out of the darkness and held me tight. Not yet, the voice said again, hold on. I was pushed back, thrown back, hurled back into the world of the living like a child being tossed into a swimming pool. I gasped awake, my eyes flying open, my chest heaving. The doctors stumbled backward in shock. One of them dropped the paddles. A nurse crossed herself and whispered a prayer. He's back, someone said, he's back again. But they weren't celebrating this time. They were scared. I could see it in their eyes. They had never seen anything like this. People don't come back twice, not from full cardiac arrest, not without brain damage, not without some kind of permanent, devastating consequences. And yet here I was, alive, conscious, fighting. The surgery continued. For the next 3 hours, I lay on that table, hovering between life and death, while the doctors worked to repair the damage to my heart. They inserted stents into my blocked arteries. They cleared away the clots that had been choking off my blood supply. They did everything in their power to give me a chance. But it wasn't enough. Shortly after 4 in the morning, as the sun was just starting to peek over the horizon, my heart stopped for the third time. Third flatline. This one was different. The doctors didn't rush to save me. I could hear the exhaustion in their voices, the resignation, the quiet acceptance of defeat. "It's over," one of them said. "We've done everything we can. Should we call time of death? Give it another minute, just one more minute." I was in the darkness again. But this time I wasn't alone. This time I was surrounded. I can't describe what I saw. Human words don't have the power to capture what I experienced, but I'll try. There were figures in the light, beings of pure radiance, shimmering and shifting like heat rising from summer pavement. They surrounded me in a circle, and I could feel their love washing over me like waves on a beach. My mother was there. She had died 10 years earlier, taken by cancer when she was just 63 years old. But there she was, young and beautiful and smiling the way she had looked in the photographs from her wedding day. "Mom," I whispered, "Mom, is that you?" She smiled at me, that same warm, gentle smile she used to give me when I was a boy, coming home from school with scraped knees and dirty hands. "I'm so proud of you," she said, "but it's not your time, Michael, it's not your time." She reached out and touched my face. I could feel her hand. Warm, real, solid, not a dream, not a hallucination. My mother was there in that space between worlds, and she was telling me to go back. "I don't want to go back," I said. "I want to stay with you. I'm tired, Mom. I'm so tired." "I know," she said, "but there are people who need you. There are hands you must hold. There are lives you must touch. You have a purpose, Michael. You have always had a purpose. And now it's time for you to finally understand what it is." Before I could respond, before I could beg her to let me stay, I felt that hand again. The same hand that had grabbed me twice before. But this time I could see more clearly. The light was brighter, closer, and I could almost make out the figure who stood at its center. It wasn't an angel with wings. It wasn't a man in white robes. It was love, pure, concentrated, overwhelming love, given form and shape and voice. "Michael." The way that voice said my name, I can't describe it. It was like every good thing I had ever experienced in my life, combined and multiplied and pressed into a single word. My name had never sounded so beautiful. "I have work for you to do." "What work?" I asked. "What do you want me to do?" "Go back, hold their hands, show them they are not alone, be my hands in the world of the living, be my voice for those who cannot hear, be my love for those who have forgotten that they are loved." "But how do I do that?" "You will know when the time comes, you will know." The hand squeezed mine, one last time, one final moment of connection between the mortal and the divine. And then I was falling again. Falling back through the darkness, falling back toward the pain and the chaos and the fear, falling back toward life. Before we go any further, I need to say something. If you believe in Jesus, if you believe that he walks with us through the darkest valleys and holds us in the palm of his hand, I want you to subscribe to this channel. Every day we share stories like this one. Stories of miracles and healing and divine intervention. Stories that will change your life and strengthen your faith. Stories that remind you that you are never, ever alone. Subscribe now, turn on notifications, and share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Because what happened next, what happened when I came back for the third time, will change everything you think you know about life and death and the power of God's love. My heartbeat returned. On its own. No compressions, no defibrillator, no medication, no medical intervention of any kind. Just life. A sudden unexplainable spark. The doctor stood frozen, staring at the monitor as my heartbeat climbed from nothing to a strong, steady rhythm. The line that had been flat for over 90 seconds was now rising and falling with perfect regularity. That's impossible," one of them whispered. He was gone, he was completely gone. This shouldn't be happening, this isn't medical. They gathered around my bed, checking and rechecking the monitors, running tests, trying to find some rational explanation for what they had just witnessed. They never found one. I was transferred to the ICU shortly after dawn. My body was broken and weak, but my heart was beating. I was alive. Against all odds, against all medical probability, against everything the doctors thought they knew, I was alive. I spent the next 4 days in a medically induced coma while my body healed. Sarah stayed by my side the entire time, holding my hand, praying over me, whispering words of love and encouragement even though I couldn't hear them. But part of me could hear them. Even in that deep, dreamless sleep, part of me knew she was there. Part of me felt the warmth of her hand wrapped around mine. Part of me understood that I wasn't fighting this battle alone. When I finally woke up, it was early on a Tuesday morning. The room was quiet, the monitors beeped softly. Pale winter sunlight streamed through the window, casting long shadows across the white hospital walls. Sarah was asleep in a chair beside my bed, her head resting on her arm, her hand still clutching mine. She looked exhausted. There were dark circles under her eyes and new lines on her face that hadn't been there a week ago. But to me, she had never looked more beautiful. I tried to speak, but my throat was dry and raw from the breathing tube they had finally removed. All that came out was a weak, scratchy whisper. "Sarah." Her eyes flew open. For a moment, she just stared at me like she couldn't believe what she was seeing. Then her face crumpled and she burst into tears. "Michael, oh my God, Michael, you're awake, you're really awake." She threw her arms around me, sobbing into my shoulder, her whole body shaking with relief and joy and all the fear she had been holding back for days. I wanted to comfort her, I wanted to tell her everything was going to be okay, but there was only one question burning in my mind, one question that I had to ask. "Sarah," I whispered, "who held my hand?" She pulled back, wiping her eyes. "What do you mean?" "During the surgery, when my heart stopped, someone was holding my hand. Who was it?" She shook her head, confusion written across her face. "Michael, no one was holding your hand. You were in surgery. The doctors were working on your heart. No one could have been holding your hand." But I felt it. I felt someone grab me. I felt them holding on. I heard a voice. What did the voice say? "Not yet." Sarah's eyes filled with fresh tears. She pressed her lips together, trying to hold back another sob. "Michael," she whispered, "you died 3 times that night. 3 times your heart stopped completely. 3 times the doctors thought they had lost you, and 3 times you came back. No one can explain it. The doctors have been walking around in a daze for days, trying to understand what happened. They keep using words like miracle and impossible and unprecedented, but none of them can tell me how you survived." I reached up and touched her face. "I know how I survived," I said. "Someone wouldn't let me go." Over the next few weeks, as I slowly recovered, I had a lot of time to think about what had happened to me. I replayed the experience over and over in my mind. The darkness, the light, the hand, the voice, my mother young and beautiful telling me it wasn't my time, the beings of light surrounding me with their love, the words that had been spoken to me. Go back, hold their hands, show them they are not alone. What did it mean? What was I supposed to do? I didn't have to wait long to find out. About 2 weeks into my recovery, a new patient was admitted to the ICU. A young woman, maybe 25 years old, who had been in a terrible car accident. Her injuries were severe. The doctors weren't sure she would survive. I could hear her crying at night. Soft, muffled sobs that drifted through the walls and into my room. She was alone. Her family lived across the country and couldn't make it in time. She was facing the darkest moment of her life with no one by her side. And I knew what I had to do. I waited until the nurses changed shifts, and then I slowly, painfully pushed myself out of bed. My legs trembled beneath me, my chest ached with every breath, but I made it to the doorway, I made it to the hallway, and I made it to her room. She looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes, startled and confused. "Who are you?" she asked. "My name is Michael," I said. "I'm a patient here too. I heard you crying. I thought you might want some company." She tried to smile, but it crumbled before it could fully form. "I'm so scared," she whispered. "I'm so scared I'm going to die." I walked over to her bed and sat down in the chair beside her, and then I did the only thing I knew how to do. I took her hand. I know you're scared, I said, but you're not alone. You're never alone. Someone is holding your hand right now, someone who loves you more than you could ever imagine, someone who will never, ever let you go. She cried, and I stayed with her. I held her hand until she fell asleep, and then I held it some more. I stayed with her all night, watching over her, praying for her, letting her know that she wasn't facing the darkness by herself. She survived. Against all odds, just like me, she pulled through. When she was finally discharged from the hospital, she came to find me. She threw her arms around me and thanked me for being there, for holding her hand, for giving her the strength to fight. "You saved my life," she said. "No," I told her, "I just did what someone else did for me." That was the beginning. Over the next few months, as I continued to heal, I became a regular presence in the hospital. I volunteered in the ICU, sitting with patients who were scared and alone. I held the hands of the dying. I whispered words of comfort to the broken. I became a vessel for the love that had been poured into me during those moments when my heart had stopped. I couldn't explain it to people. I couldn't make them understand what I had experienced, but I could show them. I could be the hands that held them in the darkness. I could be the voice that told them they weren't alone. I could be a living, breathing reminder that even in the valley of the shadow of death, love is stronger than fear. Some people called me crazy. Some people called me a saint. Some people called me a fool who had suffered brain damage from oxygen deprivation and was just imagining things. But I knew the truth. I had been to the other side. I had felt the hand of God holding mine. I had heard his voice speaking directly to my soul, and I had been sent back with a purpose. This wasn't about me. It was never about me. It was about all the scared, lonely, suffering people who needed to know that they weren't invisible, that their pain was seen, that their fear was understood, that someone was holding their hand even when they couldn't feel it. That's what I learned in those moments of death and resurrection. That's the message I was sent back to share. You are loved. You are never alone. And when your time comes to face the darkness, when your heart stops beating and the world fades away, someone will be there waiting for you, someone whose love is stronger than death, someone who will hold your hand and guide you home. But until that day comes, we have work to do. We have hands to hold, we have tears to wipe, we have hearts to comfort, we have lives to touch. That's our purpose, that's why we're here. That's what I learned when I died 3 times in one night and came back to tell the story. The doctors still can't explain what happened to me. They still shake their heads in wonder when they look at my medical records. 3 cardiac arrests, 3 flatlines, 90 seconds without a heartbeat on the 3rd one, and no neurological damage, no brain injury, no permanent complications. This shouldn't be medically possible, my cardiologist told me at my 6-month checkup. By all rights, you should be dead, or at the very least, you should have severe cognitive impairment. But here you are, walking and talking and completely fine. I've been a doctor for 30 years, Michael, and I've never seen anything like this. I smiled at him. That's because you're looking for a medical explanation, I said, but this isn't a medical story, it's a miracle story. He didn't know what to say to that, he just shook his head and wrote something in his notes. But I saw the look in his eyes, that flicker of something beyond science, that moment of wonder that comes when the rational mind confronts something it cannot explain. He was starting to believe. And that's all it takes, just a seed, just a small crack in the wall of doubt and skepticism, just a whisper of possibility that opens the door to something greater. I've told my story hundreds of times now, to patients in hospital rooms, to strangers on the street, to audiences in churches and community centers and anywhere else people will listen. Some people cry, some people laugh with joy, some people sit in stunned silence trying to process what they've just heard. But almost everyone asks the same question. What did it feel like? What did it feel like to be in the presence of God? It's a hard question to answer. How do you describe the sun to someone who has lived their whole life in darkness? How do you explain color to someone who was born blind? How do you capture infinity in words? But I try. I tell them it felt like coming home, like every happy memory from your childhood multiplied by 1,000, like the warmth of a mother's embrace and the strength of a father's protection, like being completely known and completely loved with no judgment, no shame, no conditions. I tell them it felt like peace, real peace, not the temporary relief that comes from solving a problem or finishing a task, eternal peace. the kind of peace that passes understanding, the kind of peace that tells you everything is exactly as it should be even when the world is falling apart around you. I tell them it felt like love, but not love the way we experience it here. Not love with expectations and limitations and expiration dates. Pure love, unconditional love, love that sees every ugly, broken, shameful part of you and says, "You are mine, you are precious, you are worth dying for." And then I tell them the most important part. That love is available to everyone. You don't have to die to feel it. You don't have to have a near-death experience to know you're not alone. You don't have to be special or holy or perfect to receive the gift that was given to me in that operating room. All you have to do is reach out your hand. Reach out and you will find that someone has been reaching back all along. Someone who has been waiting for you, searching for you, calling out to you since the day you were born. Someone whose love is stronger than death and whose mercy never runs out. That's the message I was sent back to share. That's why I survived 3 flatlines on that frozen winter night in 2001. That's why I'm still here, telling this story, holding hands, being a vessel for a love that is not my own. My life changed completely after that experience. I went back to work at the garage, but I was a different man. I stopped working 60-hour weeks. I started coming home for dinner. I started watching movies with my kids and going on dates with my wife and actually being present in my own life instead of always rushing off to fix something else. I realized that I had been so busy fixing other people's cars that I had neglected the most important things in my own life: my family, my faith, my soul. The near-death experience didn't just save my physical heart, it saved my spiritual heart too. It woke me up from a kind of sleepwalking that I had been doing for years. It showed me what really mattered and gave me the courage to prioritize those things. I started going to church again, not because I had to, because I wanted to, because I had tasted something on the other side that I couldn't find anywhere else, because I knew now that faith wasn't a fairy tale for desperate people. It was the most real thing in the universe. I started praying again, real prayers, not just emergency requests when things went wrong. Conversations with the one who had held my hand in the darkness. Thank yous for the gift of another day, requests for guidance on how to live this second chance I had been given. And I started telling my story every chance I got to anyone who would listen. Because that's what I was sent back to do. Some people think I'm crazy. That's okay. I thought I was crazy too at first. I spent weeks wondering if the whole thing had been a hallucination caused by oxygen deprivation. I read medical journals about near-death experiences, searching for a scientific explanation that would make sense of what I had gone through. But the more I searched, the more I realized that science couldn't explain what had happened to me. Science couldn't explain how I had survived 3 cardiac arrests with no brain damage. Science couldn't explain the peace I had felt in the darkness. Science couldn't explain the voice that had spoken to me, or the hand that had grabbed mine, or the beings of light who had surrounded me with their love. Some things are beyond science. Some things are beyond reason. Some things can only be understood with the heart. I'm an old man now. It's been more than 20 years since that night in the hospital. I've outlived the predictions of every doctor who examined me. I've watched my children grow up and get married and have children of their own. I've held the hands of my grandchildren and told them about the time Grandpa met Jesus in the darkness between worlds. I don't know how much time I have left. None of us do, but I know this: when my time finally comes, when my heart stops for the last time and doesn't start again, I won't be afraid. Because I know what's waiting for me. I know that the light is real. I know that the love is real. I know that the hand that held me 20 years ago will be there to hold me again. And this time, when that beautiful voice says my name, I'll finally get to stay. So let me ask you something. Are you scared? Are you facing something right now that feels impossible to overcome? Are you alone in the darkness, wondering if anyone sees you, wondering if anyone cares? I want you to know that you're not alone. The same hand that held me in the operating room is reaching out to hold you right now. The same voice that spoke to me in the darkness is whispering to you at this very moment. The same love that brought me back from the dead is available to you, free of charge, no strings attached. All you have to do is reach out. All you have to do is say yes. All you have to do is believe. I was a hardworking mechanic who didn't believe in miracles. I trusted only what I could see with my eyes and touch with my hands. I thought faith was for other people, weaker people, people who needed something to lean on. But then I died. And in dying, I finally learned how to live. Doctors saved my heart that night. They did their job with skill and dedication and everything modern medicine had to offer. I will be grateful to them for the rest of my life. But it wasn't the doctors who brought me back from the darkness. It wasn't the defibrillator or the chest compressions or the medication. It was a hand, a voice, a love that would not let me go. God held my heart in his hand that night. And he's holding yours right now. So if this story has touched you today, if something inside you is stirring, awakening, reaching out toward the light, I want you to do something for me. Type Amen in the comments below. Just one word, just that simple act of faith. Type Amen if you believe in miracles. Type Amen if you believe that someone is holding your hand right now. Type Amen if you're ready to reach back. And then share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who is scared, someone who is alone, someone who has forgotten that they are loved. Be the hand that holds them in the darkness. Be the voice that tells them they're not alone. Be the love that refuses to let go. That's what I was sent back to do. And now I'm passing that mission on to you. My name is Michael Turner. I died 3 times in one night. And I came back to tell you this. You are loved. You are never alone. And when the darkness comes, someone will be there holding your hand, whispering the words that will bring you home. Amen.